Yankees lose. Yankees lose. Yankees lose.
And live from the WQAQ studio at Quinnipiac University, you're listening to Infinite Sports Radio on this terrible Tuesday evening. The weather is really bad tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kenneth Grunfelder along with Ben Upson, and as
Hello.
you just heard, the Yankees, once again, another year come and gone, as the Yankees have yet again fallen short. They were eliminated in 5 games against the Tampa Bay Rays, and, it's a pretty much, looking at this series, it was going to be tough, but obviously the Yankees did not get it done. They, like I just said, lost in 5 games to the Rays. Just many different things went wrong in this series. When you look at each individual game, obviously the Yankees had many chances to, win this series, and they had many opportunities, but they just were unable to do basic things. It was pretty much the same thing with this team. Obviously, a shortened season, 60 games. The Yankees, they were very streaky in this shortened season. Obviously getting off to that 16-6 start, and then an array of injuries occurred, and the Yankees had their struggles where they just couldn't win a game, and you thought, would they even make the playoffs? And then they went on to win 10 in a row, and then struggled a little bit to end the season. But ultimately, they were able to get in. They swept the wild card series with the Indians, winning 2 out of 3, sweeping that series 2-0, and then obviously coming up against the Rays. The Rays are a team that they won the division, and you could see why. Like we talked about last week, they have a bunch of no-name guys, not a lot of household names, but the difference between the Yankees and the Rays in this series is the Yankees could not get a big hit, and the Rays did. Obviously, last week, we were on for Game 1, and the Yankees were able to win that. We felt very confident. Thought they were able to do it, but actually, no, we were on for Game 2.
Correct.
And we were watching the game live, and we were noticing, and we were both kind of puzzled by it, that J. Happ was warming up in the bullpen while Deivi Garcia was pitching in the first inning, and we thought, is he really going to take out Deivi Garcia to put in J. Happ? And that's exactly what happened, and that backfired, because J. Happ was not effective at all.
I'm sorry. What in the world is Aaron Boone thinking about putting Deivi Garcia out on the mound to start Game 2, and you only let him stay for 1 inning? And then he makes an excuse that, he was struggling. Well, what did he do? He gave up, a first-inning home run. That's not out of the normal, sometimes for pitchers. But just to bring J.A. Happ in as a backup guy, like, why not have him just start the game? Like, I don't understand the issue there. I mean, even J.A. Happ said it himself. He would have rather come in to start the game than, to be forced to come in behind Garcia after he had a quote-unquote bad inning. It's just one of, many decisions, Kenny, that really makes you question what the heck Aaron Boone does sometimes. And obviously, I know we'll talk about it as we go along here, but, in the do-or-die Game 5, well, I mean, why? I understand the season is on the line, but why are we bringing in Aroldis Chapman in the bottom of the 7th inning to get 7 outs? I don't understand that call at all. It's confusing. And, we can say all we want about, the Yankees year after year. We have high hopes all the time. It's World Series or bust. It's been that for the last couple of years. And time again, the Yankees fail to show up in the playoffs. And it happened again. In Game 5, off of, Tyler Glasnow on 2 days rest, plus Blake Snell and the Rays bullpen, they're only able to manage 1 run and 3 hits. Terrible. That's terrible. I understand the Rays have a great bullpen and all, but if you're telling me you can only get 3 hits off this team in a do-or-die Game 5, that's embarrassing. And obviously the Yankees are, one of those teams that live and die by the home run, and it's evident. It really is. And I just hope, we keep saying it, Kenny, that, maybe next year. Well, we're running out of time for that. And look, Aaron Boone's not going to go anywhere. He will be back here in New York next year, without a doubt. But next year is the year that the Yankees have to prove that they are capable of at least getting to a World Series. Because right now, it's difficult, to watch the Yankees get to the playoffs, 4 years in a row, make 2 ALCS appearances, 2 ALDS appearances, and we can't do anything else. So it's frustrating, and another terrible end of the season. But who knows? 2021, we'll see what happens.
And obviously getting into Aaron Boone's decision-making, listening to some radio shows and other people's perspectives, most notably the Michael Kay show, they were talking about how people got to stop. Obviously, Aaron Boone does make a lot of bad decisions, but ultimately, Aaron Boone is a puppet. And there are guys in the higher-ups of the Yankees organization that are part of the analytics department that make Aaron Boone do the things that he has done in the games. And Game 2 was a prime example of the Yankees trying to outsmart the other team and to show that, that we could do better than you in the analytics department. We know analytics better than anybody else. And
how about just playing the game?
That's what I was just going to say. The analytics is ruining the game, and I know it has some of its positive sides of it, and it does win people a lot of games, but it just also takes out the instinct part of the game, where at some point you just have to realize that if a guy is doing good, leave him in the game. And think about the confidence. Think about what you're doing to Davy Garcia's confidence by taking him out of a game. He's only, 21 years old? Making his first postseason start. He's not a hard thrower, but he only gave up 1 run. And, the fact that you're taking him out and putting in J-Hap, who wasn't necessarily on board with the move at all, and you just put guys in uncomfortable spots and make them lose confidence. And honestly, I don't blame J-Hap for not wanting to come back. Because there was a lot of talks about his contract going into this year, and he's definitely gone after this year. He's definitely that was definitely his final appearance as a Yankee. He's definitely gone. But like I said, analytics is ruining the game. And, instead of having Aaron Boone go up there and having to answer those questions about why he made the moves that he'd made specifically in Game 2, have one of those guys from the analytics department come down and answer the questions as to why they made the decisions that they made.
Totally agree.
But
totally agree.
That's not going to happen. But let's kind of talk about the Yankees lineup. So when Didi Gregorius signed with the Phillies, I was mad not only because of the clubhouse presence that Didi has with this team during his tenure as a Yankee, but also it just, again, decreases the balance in this Yankees lineup. This team is just, it's all right-handed hitters. And another move that the Yankees made last year when they acquired Edwin Encarnacion was a move that, I liked Edwin, but at the same time, we didn't need him because, again, it's another right-handed power hitter, and the Yankees don't need that. we could sit here and say, wow, the Yankees, they coming back, in dramatic fashion against some of these. Mic cut out. My mic cut out. Hello? Wait. What just? My mic just cut out. Am I talking? Oh, it was my headset.
Yeah.
It was my headset. Okay.
Oh,
Never mind.
okay.
All right. I thought, because I couldn't hear the audio coming out of my headset, so I thought I cut out.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so as I was saying, this lineup, all right-handers for the most part. And you have guys like Brett Gardner, who, listen, he needs to go. I'm sorry. You got guys like Clint Frazier and Mike Tauchman, even though Tauchman really wasn't that good this year, later on in the year. And they did bring up Estevan Florial, guys that are ready to make the roster. And, listen, you can't be trotting out Brett Gardner all the time. I'm sorry. I love him as a player. I love him as a clubhouse presence. But at the same time, what does he have? What does he provide for this team besides that? Now, he did bat, I believe he batted like 364. I was just looking at the numbers. So he had a good postseason. He was able to get the job done. But we got guys on this team that are ready to take on bigger roles. And bringing this guy back, I think he's 36. I'm sorry, he has to go. I'm sorry. But, looking at some of these numbers, Aaron Judge batting 143, Luke Voit was non-existing, batting 111, Urshela batting 105, and Gary Sanchez, you couldn't even find him in this Rays series. They benched him. Kyle Higashioka finished with a 308 batting average. So that tells you all you need to know. Gary Sanchez at some point is not going to be on this team. For years now, everybody's been saying, well, he's the best pure hitter on the team and all this stuff. But listen, we've given him so many chances these last couple of years, and he has not delivered. He hit 34 home runs last year, but he was batting 235. This guy doesn't get big hits. This guy is terrible behind the plate. He needs to go. I'm sorry. I've had enough of him. And listen, until you can add, and I tweeted this after the loss, you can add whoever you want in the pitching staff. You can have this great bullpen. But ultimately, if you got a lineup that cannot produce in the postseason, you're not going to do anything. And the Yankees are built to hit the home run. And when they don't do that, they don't win games. You saw that in the Indian series. Giancarlo Stanton hitting those home runs, the grand slam, and obviously the grand slam in Game 1 against the Rays. And when the long ball is not working, the Yankees are not working. They don't get big hits. The Rays can. The Rays did hit home runs, but ultimately they got them in big spots. And the Yankees, once again, they can't do that. And I go back to the Astros series over the years. The Yankees couldn't hit in those series. It's not because the Astros cheated. It's because the Yankees couldn't hit. Like, of course I'm still mad that the Astros cheated. But the Yankees couldn't hit. And they couldn't hit in this series either when they had to. And listen, at some point you got to maybe not completely tear it down, but somewhat tear it down and kind of move some guys around. Because right now with this lineup in the playoffs against really good pitching, Yankees are not going to win anything. I'm sorry. It's been 4 years now with pretty much the same core, and they have not. The closest they've gotten was just in 2017 when they weren't expected to do anything. They were one game away from the World Series. So, at some point, if they can't get it done, got to start moving some guys.
Yeah, and Kenny, like you were mentioning, obviously, Masahiro Tanaka almost certainly threw his last game. J.A. Happ threw his last game. James Paxton is probably gone now. The Yankees are going to have some pitching holes going into next season. And obviously, Domingo Germán was reinstated by Major League Baseball, which is a positive. And along with Obviously, Jordan Montgomery being back, which, by the way, he pitched a pretty good Game 4. I'll give him that.
Yes. Yeah.
He did.
That was one of the positives to take away from the series.
Yes, exactly. But who is it that I'm thinking of? Domingo Germán and... I'm forgetting.
Severino?
Luis Severino. Oh, hello, of course. One of the most obvious ones. Yeah. So those are the pluses that, the Yankees will get Domingo Germán and Luis Severino back. Also, another positive to really take out of the series is that, the torrid stretch, obviously, that Gary Sanchez has been on. Kyle Higashioka really stepped up and filled his shoes in those games. He had a home run in Game 1. In Game 2 or Game 3? I can't remember. But
I'll look right now.
He must have blocked at least 4 or 5 pitches in the dirt from Yankee pitching. And that was impressive. Obviously, the Rays would win Games 2 and 3. It was one of those games where Higashioka blocked all those pitches. Can't remember off the top of my head.
I think it was game 1 is when Higashioka hit that home run. Hit his only home run of the series.
Right.
The 9-3 victory.
No, yeah, but there's a bright spot, though, too, about Kyle Higashioka. It's encouraging, especially since, it's really sad that the Yankees, can't trust Gary Sanchez because he's batting 140 and he can't do anything at the plate. Absolutely nothing. And that's a huge problem. So, Gary Sanchez has to be evaluated now. I mean, hopefully this was just, a fluke season for him. But it's really concerning.
I'm not sure about that.
It's really concerning when, your star catcher bats 140. That's sad. So that's something that needs to be addressed going into 2021 for the Yankees. And also, Kenny, I'll get in on the Brett Gardner discussion. Look, obviously, Brett Gardner, the only player left from the 2009 World Series team. I agree. It's time to let him go. Obviously, it sucks to see this, but like you mentioned with Clint Frazier, there's more outfielders now that the Yankees can go with. They should roll with Frazier next year. And I know it's been 3 or 4 years now, I think, that they've re-signed Gardner on a 1-year deal. I think this might have been the end of Brett Gardner. Look, shout out to what he's done for the Yankee organization. If you look into his statistics over his career, been with the Yankees all 13 years of his career. His best year for batting average was in 2012, but he only played 16 games, batted .323. Otherwise, best average for most games, it came in 2011 when he batted .259. He also had 49 stolen bases that year, 7 homers, 36 RBIs. And don't forget either, in 2019, last year,
he hit, 28 home runs, yeah,
74 RBIs.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
That was unreal for a 35-year-old outfielder. So going into next season at 37, I just can't see Brett Gardner being re-signed to another 1-year contract. Like I said,
but the Yankees like him a lot.
Oh, they do. They do.
So they might keep him. Which, again, if they keep him, they keep him.
It's not the worst case scenario. If
as hard as it is, they got to let him go. I'm sorry.
They do.
They cannot keep him anymore.
I totally agree. It's time. It's time, Yankees. We got to move on to Clint Frazier now. Because I hope the Yankees hold on to Clint Frazier. I really
I know,
do.
because there's so many rumors about him being traded, and it's just I hope that does not happen.
Between 2018 and 2019, I'm pretty sure at the deadline there were rumors like, oh, they might trade Clint Frazier. It hasn't happened.
Yeah, to get like a Mike Clevenger or somebody to provide for the rotation. But that didn't happen, so hopefully they hold on to him. But also, to go back to Gary Sanchez, let's kind of look at his stats since he made his debut in 2016. Actually played 2 games in 2015, but then he obviously broke onto the scene in 2016. So in 2016, he had 20 home runs, 42 RBIs, and in 53 games. And he had a .299 batting average.
And finished second in Rookie of the Year voting. Yeah.
And then 2017, his sophomore season, he hit 33 home runs, had 90 RBIs, and he batted .278. Okay, in 122 games. So there was,
he was an all-star that year.
That's right,
as well.
Participated in the home run derby, and he defeated Giancarlo Stanton in the first round, and that was the home run derby that Aaron Judge ultimately won, and that is the only home run derby that Aaron Judge will do, which is kind of disappointing, but you kind of understand because Aaron Judge got messed up after his swing got messed up, and he was sore after the home run derby. And then this is where it kind of starts to change for Gary Sanchez. So 2018, he played in 89 games, hit 18 home runs, 53 RBIs, but he batted 186. Last year, 34 home runs, 77 RBIs. So the power was there in 106 games, but batted .232. And then this year, played in 49 games, hit 10 home runs, 24 RBIs, 147 batting average. So it's been a decline, and at some point the Yankees just they got to cut bait with him. And is Kyle Higashioka the answer? No, I don't think he is. He's been in the Yankees farm system for a long time. He's 30 years old. Hey, he could prove it in spring training next year, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Yankees got to look for other options at catcher because Gary Sanchez is not going to do it, and quite frankly, I don't think Kyle Higashioka is going to do it. So the Yankees have catcher to address. It's just very frustrating. And, you kind of look on the Rays side. I mean, how about Randy Arozarena?
Where has this guy
I mean, the dude came out of nowhere, and he torched the Yankees. How many home runs did he have in this series? He had like 3 or 4 in this series, and then he had a home run against the Astros, I think, in game
3
1.
homers, 3 RBIs in the series.
Yeah. And he had a home run in game 1, I believe. Yes, in game 1 against the Astros in the ALCS.
Rays won that game 2-1.
Yeah, Rays are up 2-0 in that series. So listen, and it's kind of funny because I think it was either a tweet or an Instagram comment. I don't remember what it was, but somebody said that the Yankees used to buy their championships because of their money, and now money doesn't buy them wins. And that is absolutely true. And if you look at the contrast between the Yankees' payroll and the Rays' payroll, it's crazy that the Rays are able to do what they're doing with a bunch of no-name guys and the payroll that they have. And right now they're up 2-0 against the Astros in the ALCS. So you know what? Good for them. They were the better team for a reason. The Yankees were 2-8 against them in the regular season. And another thing I want to point out is Luke Voit. Listen, when you win Game 4 was a huge win for the Yankees because obviously Jordan Montgomery, none of us were confident with him going into that series. None of us.
Nope.
We thought the Yankees were done because he really was inconsistent.
Yeah, throughout this season, Jordan Montgomery was inconsistent. You're absolutely right.
And he pitched well. And the Yankees, it was a huge win. And I'm not going to lie, I was confident going into Game 5, but I was confident, and then Luke Voit had to say, we're going to win tomorrow. And I was like, well, that's going to be the end. because usually when that happens, you don't normally win. And they didn't show up. Luke Voit batted 111 in this series. He was awful. He was dreadful. This team it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And a guy, surprisingly, you can't really put the blame on is Giancarlo Stanton. He had a great postseason. He was one of the few guys that actually produced in the postseason, and you didn't really expect it. But, Luke Voit, Aaron Judge, where were you guys? You guys are the leaders of this team, and you didn't show up. Aaron Judge, every year we say he's a great player and all this stuff, and he's always injured. He's been injured every single year. And, in the postseason, his numbers are just not good. He disappears. And he's got to hold himself accountable, which I'm pretty sure he has. But listen, if people are saying you're one of the best players in baseball, first of all, you got to stay healthy, and second, you got to produce in the postseason. And he really hasn't done that. It's just very frustrating that the Yankees, everybody says they're the favorites. No matter who they get, when they get Stanton, everybody said we were the favorites. They get Garrett Cole, they say we're the favorites, but we never do anything. We haven't been to a World Series now going on 12 years. And since doing this radio show, my freshman year, obviously Ben came on in the beginning of last year. I'm saying the same thing. This team just falls short every year. And there's a lot of question marks next year. And the division is going to be even better. Because you got to figure that the Orioles are going to be better next year. They were pesky this season. At one point, you thought maybe the Orioles would squeak into the playoffs over the Yankees because of how bad the Yankees were playing.
Yeah, that 8-game skid the Yankees went on.
That was brutal. And that was when we first moved in for the start of the semester. And it was it was terrible.
It was. And honestly, who knows what would have happened if they didn't go on that skid, but maybe we'd be seeing a closer race with the Rays for the AL East. We could have, definitely. And Toronto, Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., that young core that the Blue Jays have that's rapidly improving. And, Trevor Bauer's teasing every single team in the league. We don't know where the heck he's going, but the Boston Red Sox are in on the discussions right now. There's a chance that Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, so you got to figure that the Red Sox are going to be better too. Every team next year in the division is going to be better.
Yeah, the AL East, over the last couple of years, the Blue Jays and Orioles have always dwelled at the bottom, and it's been the Yankees, Rays, and Red Sox that have really done, most of the work. But now, this division is even for basically every team. I think the division's up for grabs next year, especially depending on what the
some teams
the Red
are
Sox
definitely
do.
closer than others in terms of contending.
Right.
The Orioles are probably the team that falls into last place. But you got to figure the Red Sox are going to come back with Sale coming off of Tommy John surgery. You wonder how effective he's going to be. The Blue Jays, like you mentioned, they're young core. And listen, Rays could win it all this year with the pitching they have and the timely hitting they get out of their players. It's the Yankees got a lot of question marks, especially, and looking at it, Tanaka, he's getting offers from his former team in Japan, the Rakuten Eagles. I think Mm-hmm. So he could possibly go back and pitch in Japan and not even pitch in the major leagues anymore. So that's something to keep your eye on. Jay Happ is going to be gone. You would think Paxton, like you said, probably gone. I personally, look, Paxton, it didn't work out, but I would maybe bring him back for at least one more year. Because he did have some good moments in 2019, most notably the Game 5 against the Astros. Ben, you were in attendance for that game. Paxton going 6 strong innings. So Paxton, when he was healthy, he pitched well. And you could tell early on in the season when he made the couple starts that he did, velocity was down and something was up. And, yeah, he was out for the rest of the year. And you kind of figured that. But, yeah, Luis Severino, Domingo Germán, question marks. I mean, really, the only guy that you could definitively say at this moment is going to be part of that rotation next year is Garrett Cole. And we actually haven't really talked about Garrett Cole, but, you know, honestly, I was saying this the past couple of days. It was better the Yankees went down the way they did than if Garrett Cole, you know, pitched horribly and got killed and the Yankees lose like a 10-5 game or something like that.
And the sad part was that he pitched excellent.
Yeah, he was great.
He showed why he's worth that amount of money.
He did. You know, like I said, he had a couple of hiccups during the year.
The one mistake, obviously, in the game was to Austin Meadows.
Yeah.
Austin
and that's the thing. Every run in Game 5 was on the long ball. You know, Garrett Cole, he's really good. And obviously, some Yankee fans would say, oh, he's better than Jacob deGrom. No, that's not true at all. It's not true at all. Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher in New York. And Garrett Cole is up there too. Just deGrom is on a different... He's ahead of Garrett Cole in that category.
Definitely.
But listen, Garrett Cole's our ace, and he did prove that the other night. He was great, you know. And obviously he's a guy that likes to attack hitters, and that's why sometimes he has the tendency to give up the long ball to some guys, you know, because he's attacking hitters. But you know what? Listen, he showed up. It's not his fault that the rest of the team didn't. But like I said, there's a lot of question marks going into next year. And it's not guaranteed the Yankees are going to make it to the World Series or make it to the ALCS. They're still a playoff team.
Absolutely.
But,
it's definitely still a playoff team. They have the pieces.
But right now, they keep falling short, and there's always one or two teams that find a way to beat them in the playoffs or are better than them.
And this is the 4th straight year that they've fallen short in the playoffs.
Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of upsetting because of all the back and forth with the Rays that the Yankees weren't able to have the last laugh. And, of course, it's only fitting that the guy that Aroldis Chapman threw up and in against in one of the regular season matchups, Mike Brasso. I kept saying Russo last week. I think Russo's like a trying to rethink back to my high school days, high school history, learning about like the Enlightenment and all that stuff. Or whatever he was, it doesn't really matter. But Mike Brasso hit the go-ahead home run in the 8th inning, and Ben didn't watch the 9th inning because he knew what was coming, and obviously it was better off he didn't watch it because the Yankees didn't come back. Surprisingly, that was something that I expected to do, but, you know, I was like, you know what, I'm going to stick around and see if the Yankees could somehow come back and get this into extra innings. But listen, if the Yankees were to have gotten it into extra innings, we used Chapman, we used Britton. Whoever was coming in, if we got into extra innings, was not going to get the job done. And one thing that kind of affected the Yankees was Tommy Kahnle going down earlier in the season, because without Tommy Kahnle, they didn't trust Adam Ottavino. You could tell. He did make a couple appearances, didn't really do horrible, but they didn't have any trust in him. And
boy,
also,
what a great signing that's turned out to be. I can strike out Babe Ruth.
Strike out Babe Ruth. Yep, exactly. They didn't trust him. Chad Green was on and off a lot. So really, it only came down to Zach Britton and
Chad Green,
Aroldis Chapman.
I didn't think Chad Green was that bad.
No, he wasn't that bad.
He had his inconsistencies.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
But more often than not, he had an okay year.
He did. Yeah, he did. Yeah. And he was okay in the playoffs, but he wasn't like what you expect him to be. He wasn't like he was in 2017.
Yep.
And the second half of last year. He wasn't that guy. but he was still effective. But Tommy Kahnle going down really affected this team because you had to go to guys like Nick Nelson and Clark Schmidt and Jonathan Loizaga. It just the Yankees didn't have the bullpen that we're accustomed to them having, even though I never trust anybody in the Yankees bullpen, no matter how good they are. And, of course, everybody talking about Aroldis Chapman smiling after giving up the home run to Brasso.
Boy, did that sight look familiar?
See, like, the difference is I feel like it was more of a grimace than it was a smile. I don't think it was a full-on smile like when he gave up the home run to Altuve last year. I don't know. It's frustrating.
It's hard to tell.
It's frustrating, but you know what? Honestly, I didn't find myself that upset or mad over it because I expected it. Because this team, again, like I said before, hasn't made the World Series in 12 years. And it's just another... They haven't proved anything. They haven't proved that they can make it to the World Series. They're like the teams after the 2009 World Series from 2010 to 2012. They have great regular seasons. They get to the playoffs, and they can't hit. These Yankee teams, they just are built to hit the home run, and that's it. When the home run doesn't work, that's it.
And it's like Johnny and I were mentioning on the show Sunday, Kenny, about how, the major leagues in general, it's turning into the home run game. Not just for the Yankees, but for other teams out there. And, I mentioned earlier that, Brett Gardner, when we were talking about Brett Gardner, how he had 49 stolen bases in 2011. We're lucky these days if there's a base stealer in the MLB that steals 25 bases per year. Bunting, stealing, all the, basics, well, quote-unquote basics of baseball from the past.
The Yankees are not that team. Yep.
They're fading away.
And the analytics, too.
Yeah, analytics. Analytics is a huge part of the game now, and it's not for the better, especially in the Yankees' case. And Aaron Boone just feeds off the analytics, and that's annoying.
He's a puppet. That's the bottom line.
Annoying.
That's the bottom line. That's why they brought him in, because he has pretty much that same mentality as Joe Girardi had. Yep. Except Joe Girardi won a championship. Aaron Boone gets these great teams. They don't make it to the World Series.
Nope. And like you said, they haven't been able to show us that they're capable of getting to the World Series. And it's just frustrating. So, honestly, next year in 2021, if the Yankees aren't able to make a deep run in the playoffs, I think Aaron Boone will definitely be on the hot seat. Like, I feel like this is the year where, obviously, it's too early to say, anything about getting rid of Boone. And, for those who say it's Boone's fault, it is, but it isn't. It was the offense that didn't show up in Game 5. They couldn't find any rhythm at all. And, Kenny, that's why, as you mentioned, I personally gave up after that bottom of the 8th inning. When Mike Brasso hit that home run, it was just that, deep feeling of, oh, boy, here we go again. Another home run in a clutch situation in the late stages of the ballgame. This looks just like last year. Obviously, of course, Altuve's was a walk-off, but still. And the way the Yankees had played on offense, I just couldn't bear to watch the top of the 9th inning. Of course, I was keeping track of it pitch by pitch on the MLB at Bat app, but still, I couldn't bear myself to watch that half inning because it was just frustrating and depressing that the Yankees couldn't muster anything on offense. And it's what else can we say? It's another year of disappointment, falling short. This team's really got to reevaluate, and hopefully with a tougher AL East on the horizon probably in 2021, the Yankees got to find a way to, get 90, 95 wins next year in this what should be a really competitive American League East division next year.
Yeah, and, believe it or not, the playoffs are still going on.
Yeah, they are.
Wow, we almost went. We went pretty much 40 minutes.
I know, isn't it amazing how time flies by? It's like we're talking all about the Yankees and everything, and time just gets away from you.
I know. Well, that's what happens when you talk about stuff that gets you upset.
Exactly.
But
you go on and on.
when you look at these other playoff series, so obviously the Braves, they took down the Miami Marlins in 3 games in the division series. The Dodgers, they took down the Padres in the division series. And the Astros took down the A's in the division series. So right now we're sitting at Rays, Astros. Rays are up 2-0 in that series. And then the Braves obviously were able to pull away last night, defeating the Dodgers 5-1 in Texas. And the ALCS is played at Petco Park. But the one thing about the National League Championship Series is there were fans in attendance last night.
It was great to see it.
Yes, it was. It was. Obviously, watching the game and listening, you can't really hear the crowd. It's not. No. It doesn't have that postseason feel to it when you got everybody standing up at the same time and cheering. But, it is good to have fans back in the stands. And it's unfortunate that it took this long to get to that point. But
is it 10,000?
It was somewhere, I think it was like 11,500, something like that.
That's a pretty decent amount for
it is.
What it is.
Yes.
No, I agree.
And watching the just a quick thing, watching the Titans-Bills game right now, Tuesday Night Football, the Titans, they have fans in attendance as well.
Yeah, but what you were saying, though, Kenny, it was overdue for Major League Baseball. I agree. Now more and more, it seems, each week, NFL stadiums are letting fans back in. Obviously, the NBA and the NHL were held in, lockdown bubbles, so nobody obviously was allowed there. But I agree with baseball. Majority of these stadiums are outdoors, and you would think that fans could be allowed in, but obviously it's understandable depending on a state-by-state basis. And obviously now that the MLB has their own bubble environments for the playoffs, which is interesting because it doesn't personally make sense to me. I'll say it again, that the wild card series, we're at the home stadiums, but now the division series, championship series, and World Series are all at, neutral sites. I don't personally get it after the MLB has been playing at home ballparks all season, but that's not for me to decide. And look, Texas and California, I think were great picks because, in Texas, there's a roof at Globe Life Field, the new Ranger Stadium. And in California, I don't think it rains 10 days a year out there. So,
well, you also got to take into account what's going on in terms of the coronavirus. Hate to bring it up.
Correct.
They're 2 of the worst states right now in terms of the COVID cases, especially California.
And what's interesting is, California, especially some areas, are on a severe lockdown. Like, there have been places in California that have had, no signs of life for, since March.
And it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon.
It does not. It does not. And you're right. Texas and California, they are 2 of the top states in the country. Among the top states, dealing with a lot of, COVID cases. And, obviously it's looking like, knock on wood, the World Series is, scheduled to end, at the latest 2 weeks from tomorrow. And somehow, it's looking like we're actually going to be able, to finish this 2020 MLB season. And for what it was, 60 games, the Cardinals playing 53 games in 44 days,
That's
COVID
insane.
outbreaks galore. it's
The
really
Marlins with their COVID outbreak, and they made the playoffs.
And the Phillies as well dealt with a week off. There were a ton of teams that.
The Yankees were unaffected.
True, very true.
Well, obviously they were unaffected in terms of getting COVID, but they played teams that had it.
There was.
They were supposed to play the Phillies, and then they ended up taking a trip to Baltimore earlier in the season. And then there was, at one point, I'm pretty sure they went a week without playing because then the Mets had some COVID cases.
Correct. Exactly. All in all,
but they were unaffected by it.
Yeah, and all in all, it is beyond impressive that Major League Baseball was able to get this season done with. NBA and the NHL, of course, they did a great job with the bubbles. The Lakers and the Heat, I believe, both left the bubble yesterday. So it's the first time that they've left the state of Florida in 2.5 months, which is pretty amazing. And the three major sports leagues that were impacted by this at its onset, baseball, hockey, and basketball. Obviously, the NFL has been too, but I'm talking about at the onset back in March. When baseball was scheduled to start, basketball and hockey were coming down the stretch. So for the sports that were directly impacted, it's incredible that we were able to get through it, and all 3 seasons are going to finish on time and with a controllable amount of coronavirus cases. Now, obviously, in the NFL, with the Titans, it's great to see them back on the field tonight. Obviously, they haven't played in 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens with the NFL, but all in all, hats off to all the professional sports leagues out there right now, getting through what has been a year unlike any other.
Yeah, and like I've been saying a couple times now that sports are back, sports are not going away. COVID is not going to stop sports from happening, which is a good thing. Back in March, nobody knew what this thing was about. Nobody knew how to handle it. But now that time has gone on, they put the protocols in place, and sports are able to proceed with caution, which is a relief. Hopefully, next year, the NHL and the NBA will start roughly in January, it seems. Baseball should start at its normal time. The schedule has come out. Well, it's been out for next year for baseball. So it all depends on with the therapeutics and the vaccine that's been going around, whether that stuff's going to come out so we can get back to normal life and not this new normal that the media keeps pushing. And I think we will. I think that in terms of the NHL and the NBA and Major League Baseball, I think next year in some sort of capacity, I think fans will return to the court, to the rink, and to the field to watch their teams play, which was definitely missed, especially in hockey. Hockey was, and the NBA Finals, and it's going to be different for the World Series, but hockey, it was just very weird to have playoff games going on without fans. And it was missed. And listen, it's going to get better at some point. We just got to hold out hope that at some point we have something that knocks this thing out. And like I said, get back to our normal lives because we desperately need it. We need normalcy. And sports was able to provide some of that during this time, and it'll continue to do that during this time. But only time will tell.
Exactly.
So
couldn't have said it better.
Yep. So I think we'll take a break. When we come back, we will talk about another New York team that keeps us on edge and doesn't surprise us, but continues to disappoint us in new ways, finding new ways to lose. and that would be our New York Giants. So stick around. We'll be right back here on Infinite Sports Radio.
And as we head to break, some live updates through audio of what's been going on in Bills Titans and over in the NLCS, Braves Dodgers.
Bill showing blitz from the near side. Poyer's picked up. The throw to the end zone is caught. Touchdown, Tennessee. A.J. Brown. Well, that'll shake the cobwebs off.
Who needs practice?
7-0 Titans on top. The snap goes to the right side to McKenzie. And McKenzie runs in for the score. Touchdown, Buffalo. How about that?
When Isaiah McKenzie comes in, you got to be alert for the jet motion and then the little toss. He's like a running back out there. That's how they're using him now. He does not run, and this one is driven into right. Goodbye. Freddie Freeman goes deep. And it's a 2-0 Atlanta lead here in the fourth inning. 3-2 pitch, grounded to third, and that's fair down the line. Pollock over to dig it out. Marquez will be brought around third. Seager throws, safe, and it's 3-0.
Tonight is in the backfield. The handoff to Henry again. He goes the different route to the left, and he's into the end zone. Touchdown, Titans.
All right, and we are back here on Infinite Sports Radio. Got about a couple minutes before we hit hour number 2 of the radio program. In a couple minutes, we'll take a sports update from Ben Upson. So before we get to the little tiny mini break, so the New York Giants, once again, find another way to lose a football game as they lose to the Dallas Cowboys 37-34. Now, obviously, it's encouraging that the Giants were able to score more than 9 points in this game. And there were some good things and a lot of things to take away from it that you could go into next week and say to yourself, well, maybe the Giants could build on this. But it's going to be, it's just very depressing that we have to go through another year of this team losing. But before we get into more of that, we're going to take a mini break for station identification and a sports update from Ben Upson. So we will be right back here on Infinite Sports Radio.
Good evening, top of the hour, 8 o'clock on this Tuesday, October 13th. If you're looking around the board out there and what's going on in the sports world tonight, Braves lead the Dodgers 4-0. Top of the fifth inning, they have first and third, one man out. You can catch that game on FS1. Also, ALCS action, the Rays and Astros coming up at 8:40 over on TBS. And in the NFL, the Bills are trailing the Titans 14-7 on a special Tuesday Night Football. It's 8 o'clock. That's your sports update.
We've got the classics. We've got the current hits. And everything in between. This is WQAQ 98.1 Hamden, the soundtrack of Quinnipiac.
All right, and we are back here on Infinite Sports Radio. Something a little different tonight, obviously, because we went a lot later than we usually do in terms of the first half of the show, and we figured with the break and approaching that top of the hour, why not do something a little different? So, Ben, thank you for the sports update.
You're welcome.
It was great. Now, is that going to be a weekly thing? Who knows? It depends.
Maybe
it will. Maybe it won't.
You're welcome.
It was great. Now, is that going to be a weekly thing? Who knows? It depends.
Maybe
it will. Maybe it won't. Who knows? But nice job there. So back to the Giants. So listen, I obviously didn't catch the first quarter because I was doing a intramural softball league. So I missed the first quarter, but of course, typical, the Giants are up by 2 scores. Come back to actually watch the game, and the Giants, that lead is eradicated. And the Cowboys tie the game at 17, and it was a lot of back and forth. And one thing that you really hate to see, now listen, I have been very, myself and Ben have been very critical of this player, and that is Dak Prescott, the QB, the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. But late in the third quarter, Dak Prescott sustained a compound fracture and dislocation to his ankle, and it was terrible to see. And it was one of those turn away and hide your eyes moment where it was a gruesome injury. And when it first happened, I thought it was a torn ACL because I was looking at him holding his knee. I wasn't looking at his foot or anything. And then when they showed a different camera angle, you saw his leg was just in 2 different places. It was facing the wrong. It was just facing the wrong way, and it was on the same day that Alex Smith, after 2 years of absence after his gruesome leg injury, came into the game for the Washington football team. So that was pretty crazy. Listen, it stinks for Dak because obviously he was looking for that new contract. The Cowboys and him just were going back and forth in the negotiations. And now this kind of sets the negotiations back even further. And he is likely, well, not likely, he is out for the year. And it was pretty crazy how he was able to get the surgery that night. And everything went well. He's expected to miss 4 to 6 months. But the good news for the Cowboys is Andy Dalton, they brought in as an insurance policy in case Dak held out. And now it's great that they have him because, you know, who knows who would have been quarterbacking if Andy Dalton wasn't on the roster.
Yeah, if the Cowboys, didn't have Andy Dalton as their backup, who knows, what the situation would be like right now. And yeah, for as much as, I rag on Prescott and the Cowboys, I obviously wish nothing upon Dak like what happened on Sunday. What a terrible injury. Here's the audio from Jim Nantz, Tony Romo of CBS Sports.
13. Now going to keep it. Prescott breaks the tackle. And picks up a total of 9 more.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You almost got to hope it's a cramp, don't you, if you're a Cowboy fan right there? But, that does not look good, Jim. Oh, no. Oh, you can just see that at the bottom.
Oh, one of those you don't want to see twice. Look at the love for him.
And obviously going out to a huge round of applause from the crowd at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. Just a gruesome injury. You could see the clear pain on Dak's face, and it was tough to watch. That reminded me of when Gordon Hayward broke his leg all the way back in 2017. It's hard to believe it's been 3 years since that happened now. That was hard to watch. You hate seeing stuff like that, especially, when you see a part of the body that's turned the wrong way. That's the end. For a good while for any athlete. And obviously great to see Alex Smith back, though, by the way, Kenny, switching gears. What a heck of a road he's been on to get back to the Washington football team. And he was in, I believe, from the second quarter on?
I believe so, because Kyle Allen left the game with a arm injury. and that's what allowed him to enter the game. Dwayne Haskins was inactive due to an illness, so Alex Smith was the only other active QB on the roster. He was activated this week prior to the game. So, yeah, it was great to see him back on the field. Obviously, it was a terrible game to come back into. He was sacked 6 times by Aaron Donald. And the Rams just ran away with that game. But Ron Rivera did say that Kyle Allen will be starting next week. So, and honestly, I think that's a wise decision because you don't want to see Alex Smith get killed, especially like that. The Redskins' O-line is terrible, horrendous. But I know you said to switch gears, but let's kind of switch gears back to the Giants game because I kind of want to get your thoughts on what you saw on Sunday and if this was a good loss or is it just one of those typical Giants losses, which is kind of how I'm feeling.
It's a mix of both to me. In one aspect, you can look at this game and say, well, the Giants look pretty good, for all things considered, in that, Daniel Jones finally threw for over 200 passing yards, but yet, for the 4th consecutive week, didn't throw a touchdown, which is disgraceful. The Giants put up 34 points, 27 offensively, 7 defensively off of Kyler Fackrell's pick 6, which was awesome. Great to see the defense showing some great signs of life there. Another pro is that, even with the Dak injury occurring and that long period of rest, the Giants were able to, only hold the Cowboys to 13 points after that, which it's not a huge pro, of course. But on the other hand, the worst part about this game is that the start was absolutely amazing. All the Giants could ask for. You're up 17-3 in the second quarter. And then the Giants come in. The Giants we've known and we've seen for the last 5-6 years. And it's so frustrating how when you lead 17-3 and you go into the locker rooms down 24-20. That's disgraceful, honestly, how the tables can turn like that. And once again, Daniel Jones cannot hang on to the ball to save his life. A fumble recovery for a scoop and score for Dallas, which tied the game at 17. Then the Cowboys fooled the Giants on a trickery play, the Philly special, as everyone knows it. And that's how they went up 24-20 heading into halftime. Now, there were 2 calls in this game that might have really changed up the dynamic of this game. What a beautiful play call by Joe Judge to attempt a fake and having Graham Gano chuck one up for Evan Ingram. That was beautiful. It might not have been Gano. I don't know who ended up throwing that ball. But it got called back. And
yeah, illegal formation on Cameron Fleming.
Yep, illegal formation. And nobody saw Evan Ingram at all.
No.
This was the easiest touchdown that you'll ever see. And it was a beautifully designed play call by Joe Judge. I give him 100%.
But of course it gets called back.
Of course, because the Giants' offensive line is terrible and they're undisciplined and they don't know what the heck they're doing half the time.
Or it was just bad officiating.
Yes. And, the second call, which got called back, was for, was it offensive pass interference?
Yeah, it was a pick play by Ratley, I believe.
And Tony Romo, I heard, Evan and Joe talking about this on WFAN Sports Radio in New York yesterday. Even Tony Romo, who's a diehard, Cowboy for life. And he even realized that, that was not, a call that was 100% accurate. That was a controversial call.
No.
And personally, shouldn't have been called against the Giants, but that's just me. That's just the way I saw it.
But it's the Giants, so of course, anything to
of course
appease the Cowboys and
Yep, exactly. And those two calls ended up costing the Giants in big ways because that's 14 points that they left on the board, and instead they walked away with 6.
Yep.
And that's not good at all.
No.
So Kenny, I'm looking at the pros and the cons of this game, but overall, like you said, this is a Giants loss. When the game is tied 34-34, after all that the Giants had been through, you get the ball back with 1:50. You held Dallas to a field goal. Why are the Giants throwing, some questionable passes towards the sidelines? And Jones is getting pressured galore, not to mention that. There's 1:50 left. Dallas has all 3 timeouts. What are some of the play calls that the Giants are calling? I don't understand it. There's just no time for Jones to throw. There really isn't. And I knew, when the Giants ultimately ended up with a 4th and 8, 4th and 9, whatever it was, with a minute left, that this game was in huge jeopardy because they punted away, and although Dallas had to start back at their own 12-yard line with 52 seconds left, they had all 3 timeouts. And they had a shot, to go down the field and win this game. And that is such a typical Giants way to lose a game. And what ultimately cost the Giants was one heck of a catch by wide receiver Michael Gallup on the sidelines over, can't remember who was defending on him. But, I mean, that was an amazing catch. And, of course, it has to happen against the Giants, Looking at some games in the past, Giants got screwed by 2 60-plus yard field goals in clutch situations. And the Michael Gallup catch this past weekend just adds to what's been a long list of late-game collapses for the Giants. Because they can't do anything on defense when it comes down to this. When they're in a ball game, they just collapse if there's too much time left on the clock. And that's what happened again this weekend. So, if you look at it, I mean, at least how I look at this, yes, of course there were positives. Yes, the defense looked really bad at times. Look, it's amazing that the Giants, scored 34. This is the Cowboys defense, though, so I'm not giving them 100%.
No, now they go up against Washington's defensive front next week.
Correct.
And that's going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah, correct.
But you could say, well, the Giants have had the Redskins number for the past couple of years, but, it might be different this time around.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially because they can't protect Daniel Jones.
And just to wrap up, the point here, Kenny, I know I'm rambling on like I always do, but...
That's all right. We got 2 hours.
You're right. This is why we do 2 hours. But yeah, this is a Giants loss. And, I mean, let's be honest. We kind of saw it coming. When the Giants were up 17-3, I knew that this game was going to get close in a hurry, and it did. Because that's just
because Dallas scores and then Daniel Jones typical.
That's just the Saints. That's
fumble.
Just the Saints. Why did I say the Saints? That's just the way the season's going for the Giants. I don't know why I said the Saints.
Well, they won. They won yesterday, so
they did. They did.
That's why I don't know.
But yeah, but this is just the way the season's going. It's another frustrating loss. But we saw it coming. I think a lot of Giants fans saw it coming in that late situation when it was 34-34. Hey, you know what? The defense did hold Dallas to, a couple field goal tries, which they did convert. But this is, again, I'm not personally happy yet again with how the Giants performed. It's just a bad loss, and it's the way it is right now for the Giants. They just can't win a game to save their lives. They are, since the Green Bay game, when everybody went on that cruise boat, Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard,
Victor Cruz, Roger Lewis.
Since that boat game against Green Bay back in 2017, January.
Yep.
Yeah. Another 3 seasons have passed by. And since that game, the Giants are 12-42. That is horrendous. So, we can say all we want about the Jets are the worst team in New York right now, which right now, yes, the Jets are the worst team in New York. But the Giants have been terrible themselves ever since that Green Bay game. And look, like everyone keeps saying, there's positives and there's negatives. But the Giants are 0-5. They have to win a ball game. They were in position yet again to do it this weekend against Dallas. They were in position against Chicago. They were even in position against the LA Rams. Even though they were down 8, they would have had to score a touchdown at 2-point conversion. Time after time, the Giants get into close games and they can never finish. Never. It's been like this 4 or 5 years. And it's even more frustrating every time it happens. So this was a bad weekend for the Giants. And my report card grade, I'll give them a C+. Only because the offense looked more encouraging than it had in the past.
They definitely
weeks.
opened up the playbook a little bit more,
And
as people have been
glad
saying.
to see Devontae Freeman had a good day. Obviously, with Saquon Barkley.
Run blocking was still pretty bad.
Yes,
but
it
yes,
was.
but
Yes,
yes,
it was.
he did have a touchdown. There was a couple of nice runs, but nothing too impressive. But
so in
he did
short,
have a good day.
So in short, this is a typical Giants loss. They get a C+ on my report card this week. They got to find a way to win against a Washington team that is so vulnerable. And they got to find a way to win that game next week. I mean, come on. They can beat Washington of all teams. I would certainly hope so. Either way, frustrating, depressing. This season's down the drain. 0-5. Give me your thoughts, Kenny.
Well, I mean, you pretty much said everything I was going to say. It's
and
typical.
I forgot to mention Lorenzo Carter out for the year with an Achilles
Oh, yep,
injury.
that's right. Yep.
Obviously, that sucks too on defense. Bad loss.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say is, listen, Joe Judge is the guy for this team moving forward. I think
absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
it is safe to say that. I think the players have his respect. Well, he has the respect from the players. I think the players do buy in, but when you're losing a lot of games for how long, though? But I think it's not so much that this team is losing and not looking competitive like the Jets, but this team is losing, and outside of the 49ers game, which, I mean, I still don't understand what happened in that game.
Of all the games, I thought the Giants would be in position for a win, like for certain in that game. But
yeah, no.
Nope. That didn't even happen.
No, Nick Mullins. And then look with the Eagles, and oh my God, the Dolphins putting up 43 against the 49ers this past Sunday.
What's happening? San Fran's in a hot mess right now.
Yeah. They did not do good for me in the spreads. They did not do good for me in terms of fantasy. When you drop I think a fantasy low for me, 66 points in 1 week, which very concerning for my team going forward. So hopefully we're able to turn it around. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are on a bye week, so
got to go back to the drawing board next week.
Yeah, definitely. Or my season is over. By the way, I dropped 200 points in another league, so that's that cancels it out. And then had a heartbreaker, losing by 1 point to you in another league. So a lot of different things going on in fantasy this week. But yeah, the Giants outside of the 49ers game have looked competitive in every single game. They just It comes down to pretty much the last possession, except for the Pittsburgh game. It comes down to the last possession. It comes down to the last possession against the Bears. It comes down to the last possession against, oh my God, the Rams.
The Rams.
The Rams. I don't know why that slipped my mind. Holding the Rams to 17 points. And then obviously what happened on Sunday with the Cowboys losing by 3 points. You know, the Cowboys defense, first off, is awful. It is terrible. I really cannot recall a Dallas defense that was this bad. They are terrible, and I don't know how much better they're going to get. Obviously, Leighton Vander Esch is out for an extended period of time with a broken collarbone, so that has been a huge loss for them. But I mean, the defense can't stop anything. And that's very concerning for them. Now, the one thing for the Cowboys is Andy Dalton could definitely provide stability for this team, and he showed it on those last couple of throws, most notably the 38-yard deep bomb to Michael Gallup, which I initially thought Gallup was out of bounds, but of course it was against the Giants, so he was able to maintain possession and stay in bounds and set up the Greg Zuerlein game-winning field goal. But, yeah, like you said, the Giants, just like the Yankees, you know, when it comes down to crunch time, they don't get it done. Even at 17-3, this is all too familiar. The Giants jump out to a big lead where you don't expect them to really do that. I expected the Giants to be competitive in this game and possibly win, which both of those things happened. But, you know, I didn't expect to jump out to a 17-3 lead at one point. And that lead disappeared very fast.
And what's ironic too, Kenny, is that you were out of the suite at the time too.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Since you came back,
and then I came back,
play
and
good.
Yeah, that lead disappeared. Yeah, the Giants are in no position to compete for a playoff spot this year. I think that's pretty obvious. Daniel Jones, listen, he doesn't look good. He does not look good. He made a couple of nice throws to Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is one of their best players on offense. Might be their best player on offense. The best offensive player on the team, though, is Graham Gano, because that guy does not miss. And the wounds have healed from when he hit that 63-yard field goal a few years ago when he was a member of the Carolina Panthers. So thank you, Graham Gano, for providing stability at the kicker position. We appreciate it. Darius Slayton, outside of him, listen, Golden Tate, he's okay. Evan Ingram, had a couple of nice plays. Obviously, the end around, the first touchdown in the red zone, that was a nice play by Jason Garrett. But the Giants have a lack of playmakers. Their offensive line stinks. The defense on the back end stinks. They need pass rushers in the worst of ways. They do have a couple of nice pieces on defense, but James Bradbury, doing a number on Amari Cooper, who was absent throughout that whole game. Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, they had nice games. The Cowboys have a really good offense. So offensively, I think they're going to be fine without Dak Prescott, and you think that Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard are definitely going to be have a lot bigger roles now that Prescott is out. So that's beneficial for people that own Zeke in fantasy. But defensively for the Cowboys is something that they really got to address, or they're not going to, regardless of how many points the offense scores, which you have seen over the past, the first portion of the year, first quarter of the year. But, if they don't get that defense together, they're not going to do anything. So offensively, they're fine. Defensively, they got a lot of stuff to work on. But the Giants, listen, another tough loss. We're used to it by now. Same thing as we were talking about with the Yankees. So not really surprised that the Giants lost this game. There were a couple of bad calls, but that's just how it goes for the Giants. When you're a bad team, you find new ways to lose games. And, of course, the penalties went against the Giants. You could say whatever you want. But the Giants had an opportunity to win the game at the end, and they weren't able to get in field goal range and do anything with the ball. There was when you knew that there was about a minute left on the clock, and Dallas, I'm pretty sure, had all 3 timeouts. You knew the Cowboys were going to go down the field and get into field goal range and win the game. And that's exactly what happened. It's all too familiar. And it's going to continue. You know, they're playing Washington next week. Should they win that game? Of course they should. But it's going to be a tough game. And this team is not going to win a lot of games this year. And they are going to definitely have a top 5 pick again this year. And like I said last week, Dave Gettleman, he should be gone. After this year, he should be fired. This guy has not delivered on his promises. And I should have really listened to those Instagram comments that I saw that Gettleman is going to get rid of Odell, going to get rid of Landon Collins. He's a terrible signing, and that's exactly what happened. Odell Beckham Jr. is gone. Landon Collins is gone. This team stinks. You know, and Daniel Jones looks like he is regressing. He continues to turn the ball over. And he doesn't look right. And look, there's a lot of things that are going wrong for this team, but in year 2, I mean, you got to minimize the turnovers. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not good for the Giants right now.
And I haven't, looked really deep into this, Kenny, but 4 consecutive weeks without a touchdown, that's got to be approaching some kind of record.
Yeah.
That's disgraceful. 4 weeks without 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
And
well, touchdown pass, because some people might be like, well, the Giants scored a bunch of touchdowns.
Well, true. Yeah, you're right. 1 touchdown pass. Should have clarified that. But like we've kept saying, Graham Gano is the best offensive player on the Giants.
Doesn't miss.
What is it now? 11 field goals over the last 3 games?
I believe so. But he doesn't miss. He does not miss. And
that's the one area the Giants have finally figured out.
A
Graham
kicker.
Gano is their kicker.
No more Aldrick Rosas or Josh Brown.
When I saw, Josh Brown. Ooh, remember those days.
Yeah.
No, but when I saw the Giants sign Graham Gano, that was a great signing.
It was.
That was
and
great.
They were looking to sign him, I think, last season. They were looking to sign him, and I think he signed. I don't know if he re-signed with the Panthers or he signed somewhere else, but
the Panthers. I'm pretty sure he re-signed with them
because they did have Sly.
Oh, that's
last year.
right.
I'm not. I don't know what Graham Gano was doing last year, but
not sure.
She mentioned that. But the Giants have him, and yeah, he's our best offensive player, and that's. I mean, it's great that we have a kicker that we can rely upon, but it's also pretty depressing that our kicker is our best offensive player.
Yeah, that shouldn't be happening.
Really bad.
By any means.
Now, it looks like Sterling Shepard possibly will come back next week, which would be huge to get him back in the lineup, sustaining that turf toe injury that's kept him out for the past couple of weeks. Yeah, it was just another depressing loss by the Giants, and they haven't beaten the Cowboys since 2016. And odds are they're probably not going to beat them when they play them again later on in the year. So it's just, listen, we've talked about this in the past. New York sports is pathetic right now. Outside of the Yankees and the Islanders and probably the Nets next season, well, they haven't won anything, but New York sports is pretty pathetic right now. There's really both New York football teams are awful. The Knicks are awful.
Shout out to the Jets. They're terrible, as we've seen. Can't believe Adam Gase still has a job. And Kenny,
Yep.
Kenny, we've been saying this so much recently, and we're going to say it again. Jets ahead have the Dolphins, Bills, Chiefs, and Patriots. Where are the wins coming from? I mean, what a terrible schedule. I mean, the Jets could easily lose each of these games by 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3. I mean, they couldn't even put up a fight against the Cardinals. This team is a laughingstock of the NFL right now. And
the Giants are not that far off from that either.
Well, I was just going to say, like we've been talking about, though, the Giants are competing and losing ball games. The Jets are falling flat on their face in most of these games.
The only time they were
losing.
competitive was against Brett Rippon and the Denver Broncos.
And yet they still lost by 9.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but Bill O'Brien's gone. Dan Quinn's gone.
Yep. Dan Quinn was finally fired.
Mike Zimmer
Could be on the hot seat, but I don't know if they're going to fire him. I think right now, when you look at the Vikings, they had a tough loss on Sunday. They're playing better. But the back end, in terms of their defense, needs some work. It needs to be rebuilt because they let go of a lot of people because they don't have a lot of cap space to re-sign some of these guys.
Exactly.
But
yeah,
he's getting a little warm.
But yet, of all these coaches, Adam Gase, of all of them, still has a job.
Yep.
And I don't think the Jets are going to fire him before the end of the season. I really think Adam Gase is going to be on this team till the end of the year.
But also, what's gotta make you nervous as a Jet fan is the Jets could turn around and say, all right, Bill O'Brien, Dan Quinn, you're on the market. Let's bring in one of you guys. Just like what they did with Adam Gase.
The Jets should 100% stay away from them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dan Quinn or Bill O'Brien would not be a good option right now for a team that looks pathetic.
Now, those would definitely be upgrades over Adam Gase, but it's not really saying much. First of all, you don't want Bill O'Brien anywhere near another team because of what he did to the Houston Texans, what he did to Deshaun Watson, trading DeAndre Hopkins, not re-signing to Jadeveon Clowney, and pretty much doing what Adam Gase did, taking over the general manager role. Because when they hired Adam Gase, they fired Mike Maccagnan after the draft. And for a little while, before they brought in Joe Douglas to be the GM, Adam Gase was the general manager. And the fact that you gave this guy all this control really hurt the franchise.
Absolutely, 100%.
Whether you're Bill O'Brien or Adam Gase. Adam Gase, listen, he didn't want Le'Veon Bell, still doesn't want Le'Veon Bell. The Jets are looking to trade Le'Veon Bell.
Which, in all honesty...
Good for Le'Veon Bell, but also it was bad for Le'Veon Bell for even wanting to sign there.
Oh, seriously. It was. It was terrible. And honestly, Kenny, what else can the Jets do right now? Like, they have to do something. So, if it means, giving up their lead running back in what's a season that was down the tubes before the season even started, then I guess they'd have to go through with it because there's so many bad things about this team. Looking through the power rankings this week, all the experts saying they can't even find a positive thing that the Jets are doing right now because they aren't doing any positive things.
No, they're undisciplined. They haven't won a single game. They haven't really been in any games except for the Broncos game, but it was against a third-string quarterback. And they were undisciplined in that game. And Sam Darnold was out this week. Joe Flacco made a start, and he was pathetic. They're bad. They're horrible. They're not gonna. If they don't win any games this year, Adam Gase 100% should be gone. He should be gone right now. I don't know what's taking them so long, but that's what the owners do.
That's the New York Jets. That's the New York Jets.
You got to blame ownership for that. There's not a lot of playmakers on this team. You trade your star safety for a couple of draft picks. You hope that works out. C.J. Mosley, who you signed to a big contract, he opted out for this season and barely played last year. This team is really bad. And they got to turn it around somehow, and they got to bring in somebody that's a competent head coach, and they have failed to do that. Last, decent head coach was Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan's first 2 years as a head coach, bringing them to back-to-back AFC championship games. Since then, the Jets have not had a good head coach.
No,
And
they haven't.
They might, and like I said, the scariest thing is they might bring in Dan Quinn or Bill O'Brien. That is such a Jets thing to do.
Oh,
is to bring in one of those guys.
I can definitely see that happening all day. All day that could happen. And you know, look at the Jets like on offense. Like, who do they have? Chris Herndon, Braxton Berrios. I mean, who else do they have?
Ryan Griffin, Jamison Crowder, Frank Gore,
Le'Veon Bell, of course. But now he might get traded. Yeah, but Jamison Crowder. And
Jamison Crowder's their best player on offense right now.
Yeah, that's sad. Jamison Crowder of all this team's got nobody. At least when you look at the Giants and Jets offenses on paper, the Giants offense is better. And oh my goodness, what a terrible team the Jets are right now. I mean, you know, I was reading an article. It was either from the New York Times or the New York Post. I can't remember. It was one of the New York papers, but they were comparing the Jets' 1988 season, I think it was, to this year, and you know they were talking about why this year might be worse than what it was in '88, and this is disgraceful. I mean, there's been some bad teams in the NFL that we've seen over the years, but this is a whole nother level of embarrassment right now. I mean, if you look at the Jets here through the first 5 weeks, in 4 of their 5 games, they haven't even hit 20 points. And obviously the one game that they scored 20 plus was against the Broncos, which obviously the Broncos aren't that good of a team, so it's not a huge surprise. I mean, this offense is so bad. The defense is so undisciplined. And think about Greg Williams. Greg Williams has to get out of there. The Jets, if the Jets are smart and have any sense of what they want to do for their future, they need to clean the house after this season. 100%. They need to strip everything. Get Adam Gase out of there. Get Greg Williams out of there. Joe Douglas and this Jets, front office has to do something, because this is embarrassing. The Jets, at the pace that they're at right now, they could honestly be the worst NFL team in history at the pace that they're going. This is an early season, obviously, as we're only going into week 6. And that's also the sad part. We're going into week 6. And as we said, the Jets have the Chiefs, Patriots, and Bills on the horizon. I mean, come on. This is the NFL just, they just gave the Jets a terrible schedule this year. And they're like, all right, you know what?
Well, it always seems like the Giants and the Jets have like the hardest schedules every single year.
Oh, I know. They do. And look, I'm not saying that's saving the Jets at all, or even the Giants, that they have difficult schedules. More so the Giants, obviously, than the Jets. But hard schedule or no hard schedule, the Jets look like they couldn't even beat a high school team right now. I mean, come on. Like,
they're undisciplined.
Exactly. That's the key. Undisciplined teams don't win ball games. And that's what's happening right now with the Jets. This is a huge disarray. It is a huge dysfunctional organization right now. I mean, goodness. It's good that MetLife doesn't even have fans this year. Because if there were fans going into those stadiums right now, they'd be wasting their money on those tickets. Because right now, New York football / New Jersey, I should throw in, is an absolute disgrace. And there's no signs, especially on the Jets side, that there will be anything to salvage out of the season. New York football is a pure disgrace.
Yeah, pretty much. Both of these teams are not going to win a lot of games. That's the bottom line. It's unfortunate because, at least for the Giants, because believe it or not, the Giants still have a chance at the division. Believe it or not, because of how pathetic this division is.
Now, look, obviously losing to Dallas makes things a little bit more grim. Now Dallas goes to 2-3, Giants go to 0-5. But you're right, Kenny. That's a 2-game differential, and there's the chance that yet again, well, not every team in the NFC East will lose next week because Washington plays the Giants, but the Eagles have to face the Ravens at home.
Yep.
They have literally no shot of winning that game, I don't think. Dallas plays Arizona at home on Monday night. From what Arizona did to the Jets, I know it's not a huge statement win, but Arizona is the better team, I think, right now. So I think the Cardinals could beat the Cowboys on the road in Dallas. There's a chance that, assuming Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants beat Washington this weekend. Assume Dallas, Philly, and Washington all lose this weekend. The division would look like 2-4 for Dallas. The Eagles would be 1-3-1, or no, excuse me, 1-4-1. Washington would be 1-5, and the Giants would be 1-5. That's what the NFC East would look like if that scenario plays out. That's disgraceful.
None of these teams should make the playoffs.
The NFC East...
Right now, none of these teams deserve to make the playoffs.
The NFC East has been bad the last 3-4 years, but this is the worst that I can remember the NFC East in forever. You're right. No team in this division deserves to make the playoffs. Why don't you just give, the NFC West, free access for everybody, or, any other division, just expand it for another team. And let's not forget, we have an expanded postseason coming up, too.
Giants are going to be nowhere near that unless they win the division somehow, which is not happening.
Correct. Exactly.
The only way any NFC East team is making the playoffs is through the division because there are so many good teams right now. None of these teams match up with any of these other NFC contenders.
Nope.
And it's kind of funny because the Rams right now are 4-1 and all their wins came against the NFC East. So
that's true. That's true. That's funny. I didn't.
So
think about that.
You kind of got to think like, are the Rams really that good?
That's true though. Against the NFC,
you got to think about that. But then they did come back against the Bills.
They played decent against the Bills.
So we'll have to see. But bottom line is this: the NFC East stinks, the Jets stink, and New York sports stink.
No championships since 2012.
Yep.
8 years.
And we got to continue waiting.
And it's going to be a little while, the rate that we're going.
All right, so we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the NBA Finals that concluded with the Lakers defeating the Miami Heat. And that'll take us right to the end of the show. So stick around. We'll be right back here on Infinite Sports Radio.
As King James would say, it's Taco Tuesday. Back here on Infinite Sports Radio on 98.1 WQAQ, the soundtrack of Quinnipiac. Here to wrap up the show tonight, Kenny will be back momentarily. He's taking a quick break. So the NBA Finals, as we mentioned, we will get into here for the rest of the show. And, of course, as we know, it went down between the Los Angeles Lakers and Miami Heat. And I tell you what, for what it was for Miami and with the firepower that the Lakers had, it was a pretty good finals, at least from what I see of it. At times it was one-sided, and, at other times, it looked pretty competitive. And that was just the theme of the series, up and down. And so for obviously those who don't know, this series went 6 games between the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers. And the best game of the series was game number 5. It was really the one key game in this series where, it looked like Miami had a great chance of, clawing back to, force it to, perhaps 7 games. And when they won that game, in game number 5, by a score of 111 to 108, as Kenny returns to the studio.
Just had to take a quick bathroom break.
But as I was saying, though, in Game 5, when Jimmy Butler put up that 35-point triple-double, 35 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists, what an effort. What an effort. And it was also in Game number 3 when the Lakers needed him the most. When the Heat needed him the most. Of course, as they faced, Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic both out of the series, Jimmy Butler came through for this team, for what it was worth. He was really, one of the main reasons why the Heat ended up getting 2 games off the LA Lakers. 40 points, 11 rebounds, 13 assists in Game 3. And then in Game 5, 35 points, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists. 2 fantastic games by Jimmy Butler. And what an effort by him. He laid it all on the line, for sure. And, let's not forget, as Johnny and I were talking on our show, The Rundown, which, of course, airs Sundays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. right here on WQAQ, we were, discussing about how the Heat were the perfect bubble team. This was a team that wasn't expected to reach the finals. Bubble or no bubble, honestly. But the Heat played throughout with a lot of heart. And obviously an unfortunate ending to their 2019-20 campaign, falling to the Lakers in 6 games in the finals. But at the same time, hats off to the Miami Heat for an incredible run. At the other side of things, you got to look at what the Los Angeles Lakers have done this year. LeBron James and Anthony Davis motored this team to the finals. And the pros can say what they want to say about how the Lakers had to face, the Nuggets in the conference finals and Portland and Houston in their first rounds. But just because they didn't face the Clippers doesn't mean that they were a great team. Now, if the Lakers ended up facing the Clippers, could we be talking about a different story? Perhaps. But the Lakers have so much firepower. I mean, as do the Clippers, of course, not underestimating them. But it's just too hard to say, whether, the Lakers would have won against the Clippers or not. Of course, they had an easier road, but this was a title well-deserved. For an organization that's not just grieving the loss of one of the greatest Laker players of all time, Kobe Bryant, and for a franchise that is known for winning championships, and this was their first one in a decade after beating the Celtics in 2010. This was a title well-deserved. It really was. The Lakers play championship basketball for the majority of these playoffs. And it makes a huge difference, obviously, when you see LeBron James and Anthony Davis producing night in, night out. Two superstars who have carried the Lakers to this title. And so LeBron won his 4th ring. And this reopens the doors slightly on the GOAT discussion. MJ versus LeBron. Personally, I know that our generation never, watched MJ. As, he went to 6 finals. Won 6 finals with the Chicago Bulls in the 90s. But obviously we didn't get to see him play. But I'm not trying to throw any disrespect at LeBron James. He's obviously one of the best players that the NBA will ever see. And it's a pleasure to watch the king of the court night in, night out. But even with this 4th ring, I personally can't call LeBron James the greatest of all time still. I just can't. I think Michael Jordan played through a harder era of the NBA because now the league is soft. It really is. Every time that there's inadvertent contact to the face, to the hip, to the sensitive areas, we'll say, to anywhere on the body, really. Anytime it looks harsh and, maybe a player just sticks their elbow out, by accident as they're driving in for a finish, it's soft. If it's a mistake.
I hate to interject, but the Jets have just released Le'Veon Bell.
Wow, breaking news. Really?
Yep.
Wow. Well, we're glad we could get that news to you, folks.
It's kind of unfortunate because I was trying to work out a trade with my friend in fantasy to try to get him, and it didn't really work out. So, yeah.
That's huge news. Wow. Unreal. Also, breaking alert, Astros up 1-0 over the Tampa Bay Rays in Game 3 of the ALCS right now on TBS. Braves up 6-0 top of the 7th, and the NLCS on FS1 game number 2.
It looks like 0-16 is on the horizon for the Jets.
Oh, it definitely is. And again, just to wrap up the GOAT debate, because I know we're running out of time. Again, can't see it right now. Can't see LeBron James being called the greatest of all time over Michael Jordan. I just can't. I think this league is so different from what it was 20, 25 years ago. And MJ had to work harder, I think, for the titles than LeBron has had to in his career. Again, not throwing any shade at you, LeBron. 2nd greatest player of all time, without a doubt. But who wins the GOAT battle? 4th ring or not? It's got to be Michael Jordan. And your thoughts on the NBA Finals, Kenny?
It was kind of an uphill battle for the Heat. They were shorthanded, obviously, with the injuries that they sustained with Dragic and Adebayo. After that dramatic Game 5 victory where Jimmy Butler was incredible. He was incredible. The back and forth between him and LeBron James, it was that was playoff basketball at its finest. And you could tell in game 6 that the Heat ran out of gas. And the score was it's kind of deceiving. It was only a 13-point loss in Game 6. But the Lakers dominated this game for the majority of it.
Yeah, and the Heat were down by as much as 31 in this game.
Yeah, so they made it a little bit interesting, but not too much. Listen, the Lakers, I think a lot of people expected them to be one of the finalists, one of the teams to possibly win it all, and it was them. And I'm with you. I think that LeBron James is not the greatest of all time. But again, I can't really say that I watched Michael Jordan play. I kind of just go with the majority and off of what everybody else says, that he's the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, and LeBron isn't. But LeBron is definitely up there. If the Heat somehow came back in the series and won it, this would have hurt LeBron's legacy. But
Absolutely.
But you know what? They were able to get it done, and it's good that they did that for Kobe. I was kind of for that when all that went down in January. So that was good. The Lakers are back on top, and let's see how. I think this is probably LeBron's last destination before he calls it. But what he's doing at his age of 35, going on 36, it's incredible. He hasn't showed signs of slowing down yet. So let's see if he gets a couple more.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, to bring up your point, Kenny, of course, we never saw Michael Jordan play. And I think it is just a majority thing. I think you're right. But yeah, again, no shade at LeBron, but it has gotten a little closer. But like I said, MJ is still the GOAT, and hats off to the Lakers on what was an incredible run through one of the most unique and bizarre situations that we'll ever see in the sports world.
Yep. Props to the NBA. So we got a Stanley Cup champion, we got an NBA Finals champion, and we're going to have a World Series champion in a couple weeks.
Yes,
so,
that's right.
Yeah, before you know it, football will really be the only sport left to watch, which will be crazy. But that's all the time we got for tonight. A great show as always. I thank you for sticking around with us if you stayed for the full 2 hours. We'll be back as always, same time, same place next Tuesday. As always, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder along with Ben Upson signing off. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
So long, Le'Veon Bell, once again. Have a great night.